Well, different day, same issues, same conversation, insecurity, kidnapping. I mean, we're not just focusing on Zamfara State alone. And this morning we're being joined by Captain Ali Umar, who's a former Army officer and CEO of Goldwater and Riversand. It's great to have you on the program, Captain. I mean, I'd like to begin first from that statement you heard the government officials saying. I mean, you have farmers saying they can't access their lands, and the government officials saying, well, he's challenging anybody to come to the state and see for themselves. What do you make of that? We'll deal with other issues, but I just want to start off with that and get out of the way.
Good morning. Very unfortunate statement. I mean, my grandmother knows that it's not even safe to stay at home in rural areas like Zamfara. So at a point you begin to see what we say and maintain, which may sound a bit hard, but it's true. Our politicians, our leaders, sometimes our national security liabilities more than their national security assets. What he has said is heavy. What he has said is grave. I don't know what made him say that, but anyone in this country, I mean, in my state, in my own state, a sitting commissioner last week was taken away on a motorbike by these people. And I'm looking at some gentleman there telling me, come to Zamfara. I dare him to spend a weekend in any of the rural areas in Zamfara. Not on anyone's farm, just in one of their homes. So that statement was unfortunate. Sometimes silence is golden. You know?
Well, well, perhaps he is speaking, from the perspective of what our security officials are doing. The army, of course, is very active in these areas, and security apparatus of government have been, greatly dispensed in these areas. Perhaps he's speaking from that perspective as to what our security operatives are doing, risking their lives on a daily basis in those communities.
Let me tell you what our security operatives, the army, the police, the DSS, just name them. Let me tell you what they're doing. What they're doing is akin to following someone holding a basket of papers and littering the place, while they just have to keep picking litter. What do I mean? A lot of our politicians throw the litter around. What you see today as insecurity are fallouts of what you can call misgovernance, exclusive governance. They're all reactions of people to these things. And the poor boys in uniform with the guns just go and do the cleanup after some people have done the messing up. So the army can continue to work and work and work. If you don't plug the hole, there will always be water on the ground for you to mop. And eventually they will be overwhelmed.
But when a government official makes such statements, I mean, just staying on that for a bit, I mean, you believe that silence will have been better in that situation. What are the options, or what are the possibilities? Is it that we don't have enough repercussions, reward, and maybe punishment in place? Because it will seem that these things happen. We see them happen time and again, and you wonder who's meant to maybe take the fall, take the blame, be reprimanded for this. Is that something you think has been perpetuated for long and is causing this?
Okay. Let's start with silence is golden. What I meant by silence is golden is you really don't have to talk if you don't have anything positive to say. Or if you can't speak to the truth. I mean, if you stay quiet, strategic security-wise, we don't really know where you are. At least you are safe. Than to just open up and say things that are outrightly alien to the situation on ground. Now, coming to the other part of your... I tell you something. Right from time, far back as 2014, when I started coming here, the same things we've said, recycle. What we are seeing today is physically, what the eyes are seeing today is what the ears refuse to heed. If you could go to your archives, you do sound bites. Just go to your archives on any of these issues we're speaking about. You see something Ali said, replay it. I wasn't a prophet, nor was I a doomsayer, but it's happening. And the reason is simple. If you do your projection analysis properly, and you project where you're coming from, where you are, dispassionately, truthfully, then you will be able to gauge to a certain level of accuracy, if no intervention is given, where you will be in XYZ time. Not rocket science. I once said they're getting bolder. They're doing more daring things. Well, I sounded like they called them whalers then, right, on social media. But today they've pinned the governor down. Today they've taken a sitting commissioner of police, and God knows what they will do next.
That issue in Zamfara State, especially the abduction we saw in the school in Bakura, 20 students abducted, 3 security operatives were killed. Now, what would maybe shock Nigerians is exactly a month before that attack. We saw the head of the school speaking about the attack. He was abducted a month before that attack. They say lightning does not strike twice, the same spot. But it struck twice. Even the second one was deadlier. So how is this like lightning striking not once, not twice, not 10 times, 20 times at the same spot?
There are 2 key possibilities, again, projecting it. The 2 key possibilities are, it's either the lightning, as you called it, striking, is endorsed by those at the helm of affairs.
Not by the God of lightning.
Not by the God of lightning now. You know, when you keep complaining to the problem, you actually become the problem. So we've been crying. They've been doing more. And we've been getting all kinds of excuses. Or the regulator. And when I say the regulator, now I'm not talking about law enforcement. I'm talking about our politicians. The regulator may just not know what to do and doesn't even know he doesn't know what to do. I speak professionally. You see, if you look at Nigeria through the eyes of a national security aficionado, you begin to wonder, is the Nigerian politician a national security asset or a national security liability? Financially, business people will tell you it's either an asset or it's not an asset. So if it's not an asset, it's a liability. So you begin to see excuse me, a situation that degenerates so badly that a traditional ruler on a religious day after the Salatul Eid declares a fatwa on headsmen. Why would he do that? The Emir of Muri, that's because he's not been pushed to the wall. He's been pushed right through the wall. And you still have people sitting down to tell me that no, you can go to your farm, or you didn't take permission from soldiers before you went to your farm. Now,
unfortunately, that narrative, by the way, you may want to take a sip of water because you cleared your throat earlier.
Thank you.
But don't worry, it's secure. But my question around this would be, especially concerning the policymakers, the politicians, as you call them, is it that they are disconnected from the realities, or they know what the reality is, but there is what some people will probably assume is some game plan somewhere? Is it that they are not in touch, or all these are known? Because I asked that against the background of the fact that, okay, Claire just mentioned the fact that it's 1 month, exactly 1 month before a particular attack, the same thing repeated itself. You know, previously we spoke about this, and I said, is there a wave happening? Because at some point, we didn't have security challenges for a number of weeks, and then all of a sudden there's a resurgence, so to speak, and then you hear it in various parts of the country, Niger State, Zamfara State, Kaduna State, you know, and all of that.
Well, look at it this way. For me, as I said, I do a profile analysis. You profile the situation. The reason is because we are creatures of habit, as I always insist, and we are social in nature. So let's look at it this way. Habitually, when we, and it's on record, if you have, being media people, you should understand it. Habitually, when we start coasting towards political transition, certain things begin to blink on my dashboard. So they don't surprise me when they show up. Okay?
This didn't happen just this year. It
happens
just this
that's
year.
It. You're looking at, hold on. If you look at it in tranches of 4 years.
Well, I'm not even able to wait 4 years.
Exactly.
I mean, even post 2019 elections,
yes,
it's happened. 2020, we heard,
That's what I'm trying to put you through. If you were a meteorologist, based on the recycling nature of our national, let's assume security was the weather, you will be able to do a projection of what the weather will be like in 2023. That's where I'm trying to bring you to, based on my own dashboard and what I see. Now, why is it that you see some kind of complacency or some kind of, this is new, or we're on top of it, ambience from those in power? It's called social behavior, 1, and 2, cognitive dissonance. And it's rife with Africa, politics in Africa. The man at the top on the throne is the deity. He can't go wrong. Even if he were leading you to hell, he is correct. Well, when we get to hell, after we're out of office, you hear things like, my hands were tied, my legs were tied. That's somebody who actually knew what he was doing. But right there, he did it. Only to come outside, we see it every day. It's time we woke up and smelled the coffee. The reason is because the cemeteries are growing bigger. In fact, these days they use tractors to dig graves. So we must wake up and smell the coffee, and the solutions are not far-flung. If only we're ready to bear our cats.
I've noticed a trend in your submissions. You've, as it were, you've not blamed security operatives. I mean,
not at all.
You mentioned that, I mean, they're just trying to pick up the pieces that, some people are fragmenting anyway. And you've laid the bulk essentially at the table of the politician. And you've used this term time and again, security liability and assets, or assets, right? So the question now is, I mean, we have leaders across the states, across the local governments, politicians, we have them all across. And I will reference what the governor of Katsina State said recently about people arming themselves, but essentially saying that people at least have a role to play in this security. So how do people decide or determine, okay, this politician, this leader is a liability. This is what we need to do about it. Because clearly, from your submissions, if that is not sorted, we'll keep having this lightning strike time and again.
Very true indeed. So let's talk about the people. The people themselves need to understand something. I wish I could have this said in all the 3 major languages. A lot of times people say security consciousness. I'm giving it to you at, I'm giving it to you, security 101, I beg your pardon. Okay? Basic, so that the average listener gets me right. When you see security consciousness, you can't be conscious if you don't know it. Example, we're sitting confidently here. We're not conscious of the fact that there is a snake behind the screen there. But the moment that thing is said now, whether it's true or not, that consciousness dawns, we will have to leave this room until it's made safer. You see, it's not about security consciousness. It's about security threats awareness. Our people must be encouraged to understand that until you know the threat, you really are not security conscious.
So how does that work?
The man who won't do your roads is a security threat, because you're going to have accidents. Yes, the man who won't build schools and would rather see children beg on the streets is a security threat. Hash Almajiri, that Almajiri boy you are seeing, just go and get me any bandit or insurgent. Take enough years out of the bandit until he's 5 years old. Let's assume I'm a bandit. Just take enough years off me until I'm 5 years old. On our dashboard, 97% of the time, he was an Almajiri boy at 5.
So it was a disaster waiting to happen anyway.
Absolutely. We were even nurturing it. Now we live there and go to traffic and see our children. No nation is greater than its children. So that National Orientation Agency guy who doesn't know what to do and is using our resources to do it is a national security threat. It's not about the soldiers and the policemen. Of course, operationally, they also have their own problems. Okay? But I'm telling you that if you have to plug the hole where the leakage is coming from so that your soldiers will have less to clean, then what do you think happens? You have to talk to certain people and bail certain cats. Let me digress. Afghanistan.
And you will come to that.
That was always going to be this conversation.
We will come to that. We will come to that.
Okay.
But you know, the issues that you have just mentioned now, there are those. Some of them are what they call the non-kinetic initiatives or whatever it is, interventions that are supposed to come into this thing. You know, and it's really very troubling that you say this again. But you see, one of the issues that a number of people in government will tell us is, look, Nigeria does not have so much resources as it would have loved to expend on some of these initiatives that you're talking about.
Really?
Yes. For instance, I mean, which day was it? The Ministry of Finance and National Planning were telling us that no, we really don't have much money. We have to borrow to fund the next year to fund next year's budget. And of course, there's been so much complaining about the fact that we are borrowing too much. So essentially, I'm saying, whether it's at the federal level or at the state level, we don't really have so much resources. So if we are not able to meet these expectations of the people, are you then saying that we're in a bind?
No, we're not. It depends on what you see. Most of the time when we talk about solutions, the average civil servant, politician, public servant thinks money. It's true. Money actually oils the wheels of progress. But I prefer to look at it from the cost-effective or cost-efficiency aspect of things. Yeah, we don't have money. How much do you have? 1 naira. Fine. What can we expect for 1 naira? Are we there yet? You know how much has been sunk in the Northeast? It's in the trillions. It's in the trillions. The last chief of army staff, may his soul rest in peace, met the Senate and they asked him about expenditures in the Northeast. It's so humongous. And he was just coming into office and say, you know what? You have to revert to my predecessor because there's so much on my plate now. I really can't be bothered about how much was spent by my predecessor. That's history. What I'm talking about cost effectiveness is not about whether you are rich or poor. There are countries that are not even anywhere near 10% of our net worth as a nation. Not gross, net. And we see what they do with the little they have. So when you look at the expenditure and you go down to the field and you see your soldiers, they don't even look like people who have seen 0.001 of what you are hearing has been expended. That soldier, that policeman is no fool.
So essentially, what are you saying?
What I am saying is the expense doesn't match the result. Or is it the result now? Does not match the expense. Those in service may be too shy to admit it, I understand. In our climes, that will amount to career suicide. But don't forget, those of us who have been in service and are out of service by far outnumber all those in service. And don't forget, we have peers, home and abroad. We belong to groups, accredited societies, and we speak. And we talk to retired generals, we talk to retired policemen, we talk to chiefs of police of England, and we share our thoughts. And when you hear such things, two things happen. They stretch your minds. And you come back home and start wondering, are we on a different planet? Yes, we're not in Europe. We're not in America. But it's the same thing we're talking about.
My apologies. There's something that you said about those interventions that are non-kinetic, education, health, and all those things. Now, when we talk about security, the states, for instance, will say, look, I really don't have the kind of control that you are expecting me to have. I don't control the security apparatus. But some other things are on the concurrent list, not on the exclusive list. The education, health, and all those other things. So essentially, you are saying then, if I understand you correctly, that there is a lot the state governments can do to mitigate the possibilities of insecurity degenerating.
Yes, indeed. Let me tell you something about insecurity. Insecurity doesn't just happen like this, like switching a set on or off. It grows over time. It takes years. That bandit you are seeing is probably some 20, 25 years of very carelessly left children who are now in their middle ages. They didn't just jump up and become 25 today. So strategic security wise, you could look at today's Nigerian child and tell me what tomorrow's people Nigeria will look like from a security man's perspective. So to my state governor, I use Lagos State. I'm not marketing Lagos State. I once took part voluntarily, freely, in something Governor Sanwo-Olu did for the Lagos child. It's called Snacks for Thought. We gave them free food in public schools, and while they were at it, they came down to our level and we shared a lot about security with them, particularly when they were taking children from Lagos schools. You remember then? When they were kidnapping children from schools in Lagos State? You know, Ambode was then at the helm of affairs with Fatai Owoseni. They swung into action and stopped it. The moment Sanwo-Olu came in, you know what he did? He plugged it right there. The leakage. By what? Equipping these children minds.
Well, it's interesting you reference Lagos, because in the same Lagos today,
yes,
I mean, you can be driving in traffic. I had a friend just narrate this experience. I mean, he was driving in traffic and someone came from nowhere, well, from somewhere apparently, just opened the door and picked valuables in the car. And guess what? There were policemen just a few meters away.
Of course.
And this is a true life story. In fact, it ended up really bad for him. Maybe another conversation for another day.
I'll tell you.
That's the experience of a lot of Lagosians today.
So right now,
yes, we may have nipped in the bud the future ones, but there are those happening today. Maybe as I speak, someone is being a victim of one chance, you know, and the rest.
Very true. The Snacks for Thoughts initiative took place quite early in his, you know, ascendance to office. We did that within, 3, 4, 6 months of Sanwo-Olu becoming governor. And that's been quite a while. What it has improved to or degenerated to again is a function of, as I told you, cost effectiveness. Cost effectiveness cannot be driven by the policeman, cannot be driven by the commissioner of police, cannot even be driven by the commissioner of whatever sector the police is under in Lagos State, or special duties commissioner, whatever. I'm not a politician. It's driven by the chief executive himself, Sanwo-Olu. If I were to work with you, I don't understand your downlines. They are your babies. You're going to give me cost effectiveness, or I'll have to change you.
But that's for Lagos.
There
are other states,
nationally. Okay?
Yes, but there are other states who have perhaps a lot more peculiar institutions on their hands. As Kayode said, they are dealing with clear and present danger. But then you are also speaking to future risks, you know. Now, measuring the two together, that's a Herculean task, you would agree, especially in the face of depleting resources. There have been communal clashes over the years, for instance, in Plateau State, the same thing in Benue State, same thing in Kaduna State, and a number of other states like that. So handling those issues is quite Herculean. But then having to manage those as well as preempt possible worse risks in the next 20 years.
Let's look at it this way. It's quite Herculean, but if you actually belonged to my kind of mindset, we don't come, you don't see us every day, but we just believe that even the planet is actually little bits of grains of dust, the entire planet Earth. Yeah, it's Herculean depending on what you see. But let me tell you something. Futurists, presentists, or even the past, take it from me now. You see, yesterday, once upon a time, was now. And sooner than late, tomorrow will be now. So you are in the strategic position of the now time. What are you doing now? That will take care of tomorrow. And that will write your history when tomorrow comes. And you're talking about today. So if you want to do things right or want to see things work in 20 years' time, your best position is the now time.
Okay. On that same issue.
Let me just add a bit.
Okay.
Security-wise, we are blessed with the benefit of hindsight, and we're alive in the moment. If we are creatures of habit, then we can project 10, 20 years to come. Of course, there will be what you call variables. But then these variables will not alter it the way you divide 4 by 2 and it becomes 2. It's a function of time. If you understand these things, you look at a security situation, you don't see a big problem really. You just see a problem that is actually big because it's so many little things put together.
One of those little things
Yes.
are the sentiments that are always at play in people. For instance, these communal clashes. You know for how
Religion,
long,
tribalism.
exactly, how long the farmer-herder clashes lasted. The sentiments in the Niger Delta, you know, that one also, and how strong those sentiments were, you know, that has culminated in what we have as the PIA now. So decrypting those sentiments, I don't know if you think it is something the policy can address.
Nah, far from it. I tell you, who are the founding fathers of these sentiments? Politicians. One, politicians. So let's live with it. We have sentiments. How do we decompose it? There are two things, technology and metacognition. Let's start with technology. I look at herders and farmers, they are clashing, their cattle are eating, and I'm just laughing. If you go to the airports today, there are devices as little as this tumbler you can hang on the control tower, and within the next 20 kilometers, no birds will fly over that airport because cymatics has taught us that there are certain sound frequencies birds don't like. Birds are bad news for our aircrafts because there's what you call bird strike.
Yeah.
They get, you understand what I'm saying? Now come to the farmers in the villages. All over this world, there are equipments you can subsidize the same way they subsidize petrol. If you don't want to subsidize it, there are people who will bring in their investments and do it security-wise. And no cattle
I talk
will
about
enter that
arms.
farm. No, what not arms? These are toys we play with in my profession. I could put something in your farm and no rodent, no cattle, no matter how savvy that Fulani headsman is, there's nothing he will tell that cow to that will make that cow enter that. In fact, that cow won't even come within a radius of the area of that little. Come on, guys, let's think here. But as I told you, I'm beginning to wonder, are our leaders' liabilities or assets?
Back to where we started from. And, you know, I said this thing, that same conversation, different day. I mean, we're talking about Taliban taking over in Afghanistan. I mean, this is the same conversation on a different day. And a lot of people have talked about the possible effect on Nigeria. I mean, the president wrote an editorial, as it were, saying that Africa is the next frontier of global terrorism, just to paraphrase. I know a lot of people have projected, but for you, if you can just quickly, as we wind down, merge the lessons and the possibilities of this for Nigeria. For the fight against terrorism, banditry, and whatever.
For Nigeria, I now come back to my constituency. Let me place them on the hot seat. The security community, armed forces, police, and whatever. Afghanistan is heads up. By now, I expect service chiefs, national emergency agency chiefs, road safety chiefs, you name them. I expect them to be sitting close to their screens with their notebooks. You are looking at a humanitarian crisis. How many Afghanis do we have? What's their population? Don't come tomorrow and start telling Nigerians not to take laws into their hands because if they do it, Afghanistan is an example. Afghanistan is not meant to be a refrain. It's meant for us now to be an example. Liberia happened, we were there, but there was no technology and social media as we know it today. Today, life is so much easier. Sit on Afghanistan. Look at the crisis in terms of evacuation, what is required. Look at the crisis in terms of health. There's a breakdown, what is required. When you have dead bodies littering everywhere, even, my friend, Afghanistan is a big heads up, it's an opportunity. I'm sorry to say that. I sympathize with Afghanis, but this is an opportunity for us to learn. It's not meant to be refrain and tomorrow one minister will be using it as, you know, to tell Nigerians not to ask for better and more.
Captain, I think it's very important we end on that note. I mean, food for thought, something to chew on for the coming days. But clearly this conversation is not over. I would like to thank you so much, Captain Ali Umar, former Army officer and CEO, Goldwater and River Sand, for sharing your thoughts with us on this program.
Thanks. It's nice being here again.
All right, well, some responses have come as a result of this conversation. Demola Lalade's mail comes first. To deal with the security challenges facing Nigeria, government needs to look at the root causes rather than trying to brush over the issues and proffering solutions that won't completely eradicate the problem. The solution is simply to provide an enabling environment for all Nigerians to thrive in their respective endeavors. Provide employment for the youths, engage with them regularly, provide basic infrastructure that works effectively, and implement laws to the letter. And you'll see how those challenges will gradually ease off.
So, which mail is next? Let's take a look at the next one.
That will be Alamin Ribadu.
Oh, there you go. And it's on addressing insecurity in Nigeria, saying insecurity in Nigeria is too much. The federal government should do something about it. I suggest every ministry in FG should come up with a strategy to curb insecurity in our country. That'll be quite interesting. The idea of orientation and reorientation in Nigeria isn't effective as it should be. Illiteracy in Nigeria is the foundation of insecurity. The government should tackle that. Let's make our local government chairmen and councillors powerful than they are now, for they are closer to the remote places where we have insurgency, crimes, kidnapping, ethnic violence, and religious violence. The military, police, and paramilitary cannot do it alone.
Frank's email is on Petroleum Industry Act. There is a lot to cheer about the Petroleum Industry Act, PIA 2021, and I commend the political will of the Buhari administration and the 9th National Assembly for bringing this law to life after many years of legislative pendency. However, my genuine concern on the 3% for hostcoms is not whether it's too small, it is who manages the proceeds in ensuring that the devastated communities get the actual values in terms of development and improvement of the well-being of the ordinary people, and the actual recipients of the adverse effects of the oil exploration activities. I worry because despite the FG Interventionist Agency, NDDC, the Ministry of Niger Delta, and 13% of oil-producing states, many of these communities still don't have clean water to drink, no electricity, no good road networks, pig-like school environment, and so on.
Let me just say our mailbox is full. Well, we can get more from you, so keep them coming. Festus Akiboyewa is on, his mail is on Nigeria's oil and gas industry, saying maximizing recovery of our oil and gas resources and increasing our oil production and reserves should be more important to Nigerians than the 3% host communities fund. Also, the host communities will surely benefit from cleaner environment the BIA will foster. I recall that the Ogoni cleanup, we had a report that, I mean, it's not as fast as it should be. So, I mean, these are components of a conversation we always need to put up.
All right, let's take this one from Olakunjo Oladele about the same issue. The absence of the petroleum industry law created an unstable fiscal environment for the petroleum industry whilst inhibiting growth in the upstream sector of the industry. The PIA is a welcome initiative. However, creating laws or passing an act into law will not enable confidence in the sector when evidently Nigeria lacks a political will to implement laws.
Well, we got your mail, Bolanle Oluwadari. Let me take this one on the conversation we had at the beginning of the program on road crashes, and this is from Wale Adekunle saying, it baffles me how civil society, or rather civil outfit, like FRC, always harps on enforcement rather than enlightenment. 80% of the people that drive on our roads are untrained. FRC should be thinking of how to train people in order to achieve better driving culture on our roads.
Absolutely. Very, very true indeed. Well, that's the Sunrise Daily today. Thank you so much for watching. As Kaude said, keep the mails coming in. Your reactions are always welcome. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Well, how about this? Pardon me for enlightenment. Drive safe, right? So that's our own enlightenment. I'm Kayode Okikelu. Thank you for joining us.